Hi everyone, my name is Faith Goh and I'm here to go through some of the questions in the ACJC prelim paper. This is the first question of the paper and you can see it on the screen. It says, is there any point in pursuing democracy today? Of course, one of the question stem, it says, is there any point? And when you think of is there any point, you think of this idea of why bother, right? There's a fatalistic element in it. If I say, is there any point in studying for the A-levels? You can hear the subtext quite clearly. I'm going to fail anyway. Yeah? So there's this sense that it's not worth the effort because ultimately the outcome is going to be terribly, terribly disappointing. Of course, for this question, the topic is pursuing democracy. And so it is about why is democracy ultimately so disappointing? So when you look at democracy, you have to be thinking of certain things. Of course, you'll be thinking of free elections, so democratic systems, the idea of one man, one vote, the idea of the right to choose your government. There's this idea of having equal rights under the law. There is also the element of freedom of speech, because you have that power, individuals have that power, autonomy to choose governments. And the context is today. So you're looking at countries today. You're going to look at the US, you're going to look at Europe, democratic societies. You're not going to be going so far back as to look at Greece. Okay, so when you see this question, what you must be very clear about, and what you must be asking yourself will be, why would someone say that there is no point in pursuing democracy? How is democracy so flawed that people are so disappointed in this? And why are people disappointed in democracy today? If you don't have a sense of what the answers to these questions are, you can't do this question, because this question assumes, this question is asking you whether there's any point in pursuing democracy. So you must have a sense of the problems that arise from democracy. Okay, I'm not going to be calling these arguments OB or SB yet. I just want to brainstorm a little bit about why democracy is seen to be so flawed. I mean, one of the things that come up would be that the two-party state system is often plagued with paralysis. Okay, I don't know whether you know about the Washington shutdown. That is when the US government shut down completely because the Republicans and Democrats cannot decide, and so it gets into a bit of a paralysis and nothing moves. The two-party state system can be seen to be very slow in changing, and in some ways, whenever, for example, if you look in the US, when the Republicans came into power with Trump, he effectively dismantled what Obama did. So he dismantled Obamacare. He pulled out of Paris climate change. Then now with Biden coming in, he is dismantling what Trump is doing. And so in that sense, there's this sense that democracy hits nowhere, because in a way, there's a lot of opposition, and it's still a very slow system. I mean, if you compare something like Singapore, where we've had pretty much the same party, we've had the same party for many years, and you kind of just decide and you go, and there is none of that to-ing and fro-ing that a two-party state system has. Okay, so this is one of the ideas. I mean, you could also say that democracy allows for too many stupid voices to rise up because of the commitment to freedom of speech. I think one of the places where this can be seen the most clearly would be France. There's a very strong commitment to secularism and freedom of expression, freedom of speech. And the very tragic thing is that what happened with Charlie Hebdo, and where where very offensive things were published, and it led to violence, really. Okay. And so there's some sense that, I mean, from our part of the world, we look at it and we're thinking, why are you so committed to this freedom of speech when, as in why, right? And so in that sense, there doesn't seem to be any point to pursuing it when the outcome seems to be violence. Okay, not always, but in that case. So a third point, you could argue that democracy has been associated with capitalism, profit, economic growth. In some ways, the rise of democracy is seen as the rise of the US, and the idea that with democracy, you will have wealth as well, because there is freedom to innovate, freedom to run businesses, and so economies will grow. But the thing is this, with the rise of China, that has seriously, that has in some ways decoupled the political system of democracy from money, in a way, from economic growth, because China's GDP is going up, but they have an authoritarian political system, right? And so many of the people who support democracy as in many people are kind of looking at China and say, is that a viable, is China's system, or even Singapore's system, right, a viable or even or better alternative to democracy? So in that way, why should we have to be so liberal-minded in a way and pursue democracy when you can achieve a high standard of living, good prosperity, without necessarily having to give such freedom or being so committed to this idea of democracy? Okay. Another country that you can look at is Vietnam, which has grown very fast in recent years, very efficient as well, very successful. Okay. So you do need to have a sense of why people might say that there is no point in pursuing democracy, but you also want to ask yourself, is there still a point to pursuing democracy though? I mean, if you were to ask me, I will still lean to this, partly because the alternative is worse. Right? I mean, if you look at Churchill's quote, where it says that democracy is the best of the worst options. Go and look it up. I might not be saying it right. And the idea is that the system's not the system's not perfect, but at least we have some rights. At least it works in some ways. Democracy, of course, you could argue is the only way to ensure the peaceful transition of power. If you look into history and you look at how regimes change and people come into power, it's usually violent, bloody. But democracy ensures that there is a system in place to allow for the people in power to change without bloodshed. And so in that sense, perhaps for that reason alone, there is a point to pursuing democracy. If I were to take this, if I were to write this essay, I think that would be my view. And so the thesis I would take would be something like that. The idea that while there are many problems with democracy today, and it is far from a perfect system, democracy is still our best option, as it secures people's rights and allows for the safe transition I mean, that's just my take. I mean, that is just how I would do this. I mean, how I would approach this question. And so this is, whoa, I should have done that. I haven't figured this out, sorry. So this is the whoa, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh, never mind, I'm just being silly. Okay, so this is will be the thesis. Whoa, I have no clue what happened over there. Okay, sorry. So this will be the thesis I would take. Okay, and then I would say, I would first explain. So remember, every time the question, whatever the question asks, please answer it. Why there is no point in pursuing democracy. So 1, 2, 3. But then I would still concede why perhaps there is still a point 4 and 5. Okay, so that's it for question 1.